So, like last year, or I guess 2021, a mixed bag. Some of them were on the nose, others were not even close. I will try to do better with my 2023 predictions for the wrestling world. I predict that WWE will get a massive rights increase for its programming from Comcast/NBC Universal that will see all WWE shows airing on their networks in 2024 and beyond. That includes Raw and NXT on USA Network and SmackDown moving from Fox to NBC. And I do believe that having all of their content under the NBC Universal umbrella, including their agreement with Peacock, will eventually lead to them buying WWE, although them buying WWE outright will not happen next year. It will not happen this year, it will not happen next year, but I believe it will happen. And we've talked about this on the podcast many times. Potential suitors for WWE, Disney, Amazon, NBC Universal / Comcast, Fox. I mean, there's a lot of different corporate entities that could afford to buy or acquire WWE if they want to. NBC Universal, I mean, as much of a relationship as these two companies have, it just is the one that makes the most sense. I predict that Vince McMahon, while trying to disguise his identity, will attempt to crash the Raw 30th anniversary show in Philly later this month, but he will be denied entry into the building, much like Bobby Heenan trying to get into the Manhattan Center for that first Raw back in '93. I predict that Stone Cold Steve Austin will be a surprise entrant in this year's Royal Rumble match in Texas. At least he'll be a surprise until PW Insider or Fightful spoil it. But I kid. I like Mike and I like Sean. But that glass is going to shatter, and those people are going to go batshit crazy. He's not going to win, but it's going to set up whatever the match is that he'll be doing at WrestleMania. I predict that for all the waiting, will he, won't he, what's he going to do? I predict The Rock will not wrestle Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I think The Rock ultimately is going to decide, I have a lot of things on my plate. Movie stuff, TV show stuff, right? Young Rock. XFL is launching in about a month and a half. And I think ultimately he will decide against it. But Cody Rhodes will return to win the Royal Rumble, and he will be the man to take down the Tribal Chief at WrestleMania 39. And then Seth Rollins will be the man who then takes the championship from Cody later on to avenge all of those losses to him last year. I predict that Sami Zayn will challenge Roman Reigns for the championship in Montreal at Elimination Chamber after being excommunicated from the Bloodline. He will fall short, but he will go on to team with Kevin Owens at WrestleMania to beat the Usos and become WWE Tag Team Champions together for the first time. I mean, I've only been saying this now for 4 months? Now everybody is saying it. I was talking about this at least 4 months ago. It's the story that makes sense. I predict that Rhea Ripley will win the Women's Royal Rumble match and then beat Bianca Belair at WrestleMania to win the Raw Women's Championship. I predict that Sheamus will finally win the Intercontinental Championship in 2023. He will win it in Los Angeles at WrestleMania. It should be from Gunther. I can't say that for sure, since there's been talk of Gunther against Brock Lesnar. But I am convinced that they are saving a Sheamus IC title win for WrestleMania, and that is the right place to do it. I predict that Ronda Rousey will wrestle her final match for WWE in 2023. I predict that Sasha Banks, meanwhile, will wrestle again for WWE in 2023, but she will also wrestle for Stardom, and she will also wrestle at least one match for AEW. This is going to be the year of Mercedes. We are going to see her everywhere this year, but maybe except Impact. But ultimately, WWE is going to offer her a ton of money, and she will end up back home again by the end of the year. I predict that Edge will wrestle his retirement match on a major show in Toronto, and his opponent will be Kevin Owens. I predict that Matt Riddle will not last the year, and he will be released by WWE because of all of his personal drama. I predict that Big E will be cleared to return to the ring from his broken neck. I predict that Mandy Rose will be back working for WWE sometime in the first half of this year, and Toxic Attraction as a trio will debut on the main roster. I predict that WWE will bring back King of the Ring, and they will debut a new Queen of the Ring tournament, not the Queen's Crown crap that they did last year or the year before. They will bring it back as its own pay-per-view. I don't know what they're going to call it. That's the whole thing. If they're going to do King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring matches, even if it's just the semis and the finals, in one night, then you can't call it King of the Ring, right? You got to come up with some other name that incorporates both. But I believe that they will be back as a pay-per-view to replace Hell in a Cell. And I predict that Gunther will become king and Bayley will become queen. I predict that LA Knight will hold the Intercontinental or US title this year. I predict that the Street Profits will break up and Montez Ford will go heel as a singles act. I predict that Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa will reunite their DIY team on the main roster, and they will be WWE Tag Team Champions before this year is over. I predict that Pat McAfee will have a match with Corey Graves sometime this year on a WWE pay-per-view. I predict that we will see Chelsea Green and Matt Cardona back in WWE this year, and both of them will return as surprise entrants in their respective Royal Rumble matches. I predict that this is the year that Nick Aldis finally signs with WWE. And I predict, when it comes to the Hall of Fame, that Batista, William Regal, Lex Luger, Mickie James, and the Great Muta will be among the names inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Batista was supposed to headline in 2020. He declined due to the pandemic. He wanted it to be in front of actual people. And then you have Muta. With Muta retiring, I think it's part of the deal that Triple H and Nick Khan made to allow Nakamura to wrestle him this morning, that Muta would accept an invitation into the Hall of Fame. And then as far as a celebrity inductee, my prediction, goes to Andy Kaufman. So I think we're looking at a Hall of Fame class of Batista, who would headline because they're in Hollywood, Batista, William Regal, Lex Luger, Mickie James, the Great Muta, and Andy Kaufman. And I think that's a hell of a Hall of Fame class. I predict that Bron Breakker, Carmelo Hayes, with Trick Williams, Grayson Waller, Cameron Grimes, Pretty Deadly, Katana Chance, and Caden Carter will all get call-ups to the main roster this year. I predict that Tiffany Stratton will be the next NXT Women's Champion, taking the title from Roxanne Perez. On the AEW front, I predict that CM Punk and AEW will officially part ways, and Punk will not wrestle a match for either AEW or WWE in 2023. I predict that Kota Ibushi will wrestle in an AEW ring for the first time, but it will not be as a member of the New Japan roster anymore. He will be working as a free agent. I predict that MJF will not only sign a new long-term contract to stay with AEW if he hasn't already, he will start 2023 as the AEW World Champion, and he will end 2023 as the AEW World Champion, as they continue to play into the whole bidding war of 2024 story with the idea that he might leave and take the title with him to WWE. I think he'll be champion for the entire year. I predict that Adam Cole will return to the ring early in 2023, and he will take the TNT Championship from Darby Allin after Darby wins the title back from Samoa Joe this week on Dynamite. I predict that AEW and New Japan will partner to present its second Forbidden Door pay-per-view, which will be headlined by Kenny Omega taking on Kazuchika Okada, and that Stardom will be involved in this year's Forbidden Door show, with the IWGP Women's Championship being defended. I predict that FTR and Andrade El Idolo will be out of AEW and back in WWE by year's end, although Dax and Cash will freelance for a while before signing a full-time deal. I predict that Jon Moxley will finally turn heel. I predict that Sting will wrestle his final match in 2023 in an AEW ring. It'll be alongside Darby Allin. And on the other side of the ring will be Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. You know, Sting and Jericho, they have never worked together. Not in WCW, not in WWE. And I'm shocked they haven't worked together yet in AEW. I think that changes this year. I predict that the House of Black will win the AEW Trios titles. I also predict that Chris Statlander will return to take the TBS Championship from Jade Cargill, handing her her first defeat. I predict that Konosuke Takeshita will win the AEW All-Atlantic Championship. I predict that Ring of Honor will get its weekly show early in the year on its Honor Club service, and by the end of 2023, it will be streaming on YouTube, because Tony Khan will be unable to get a television deal for it. And finally, we tried this last year. It didn't happen. But I think this year, Will Ospreay will finally win the G1 Climax. And those are my predictions for the wrestling world in 2023. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your predictions? Drop me a tweet, send me an email, let me know what you think. But those are my predictions for the new year and beyond.